up until recently, I remember reading in Wikipedia where they had the entry in the erect Kegel where they actually had mentioned that it improved in size. Just that exercise alone can improve the size of erections. And if you've ever performed a Kegel with an erection, you could feel a drastic difference than, say, if you're performing it flaccid. So that's definitely a key exercise. It helps to develop stamina and hardness. So, and it's also fundamental for ejaculatory control when you combine it with what we call edging movements, or if you're performing sexually, well-timed Kegel can help you to, either hold back or accelerate an orgasm. And there's also that period, and you might be, this might be I think this is your domain, where there's that space in between, holding back and orgasming, where if you time it just right, you can induce what's called the male multiple orgasm. So the dry orgasm. So that definitely takes practice, conditioning. You're getting the timing right, and of course, just your body learning how to handle that type of experience. But the Kegel is very good for that.
Gotcha. Cool. So we got the Jelk, we got the Kegel. Both seem to be accessible. Go ahead.
Yeah. One of the finishing exercises that I highly recommend is called edging. There's a structured version of that, which is called the stop and starts. This exercise you can perform manually, or even better, with your sexual partner. But the exercise essentially consists of stimulating yourself, and when you come close to orgasm, what we call the point of no return, you stop short of that, halt and for enough time for that feeling to subside, and then you continue stimulating yourself. You stop, you stimulate yourself, and stop for up to 3 times. And then the 4th time, if you wish to, ejaculate and go forward, then that's fine. And the purpose of that exercise, it's got really 4 main aspects to it. It's got, the aspects of just raw stamina, your ability to go from point A to point B. We call that the temporal aspect, and that's very important. Even if you have to stop during the exercise, even if you have to allow your erection to deflate a little bit, it's just getting conditioned, conditioning your body to go from point A to point B without ejaculating. That's usually the first aspect that most men master. And then you have the hardness. Now, we have something that we call the EQ stat, which is erection quality. It's a combined measure of stamina and hardness. The optimal EQ would be, you lasting as long as you want at maximum hardness. So that is 2 of the aspects. And you have the aspect of ejaculatory control, which is essentially, you learning, certain clues that your body gives you to be able to tell yourself, well, I have to stop now, because if not, I'm going to orgasm or ejaculate. So, you get to the point where you can, you don't have to stop. Maybe you can slow things down. But again, that definitely comes to practice. One of the most important aspects that's performed during this exercise is what we call emotional visualizations. Now, if you're training by yourself, that means you're not focusing on any kind of erotic imagery. You're definitely not watching porn. You're essentially just attempting to focus on the tactile sensations. You're attempting to try to extract as much as you can just by, just on focusing what you're feeling at the moment. And I know that sounds difficult. It is a challenge. But if you can get to the point to where you can perform well doing that, the benefits are many. And I'll give you a really good example of why it's important to learn how to do that. I get a lot of guys who come to me and they will tell me, when they're having sex, sometimes, their erection starts to fade. And a lot of times what these guys do as a solution is they go into their minds and they start fantasizing about either their favorite porn clip or just something they regularly masturbate to. And it's usually something that's unrelated to the scenario that they're involved in at the moment. And that usually works. And the reason why that works is because they've conditioned themselves to that. And then, after the session, they feel a little guilty. They ask me, they say, like, why do I have to do that? And again, it all has to do with your conditioning. You have conditioned yourself to respond to that. So, if you can condition yourself to extract as much as you can out of just the tactile sensations, when it comes time to immerse yourself in live sexual contact, you have all of this other sensory input, and you should have no problems. It's like going from a fast to a feast. So that's one of the reasons why I recommend that. And it does take discipline, but and I know that discipline is a good thing. So that's
Awesome.
definitely, I think, one of the best benefits of that exercise.
Cool. Yeah, I think this has been like a great set of exercises. I love the way you explain things. I think it very, very well complements what else is in this course.
Thank you.
Could you share a little bit about the sexual benefits are pretty straightforward, right? Like erection quality, stamina. Can you share about more of the less tangible things you've noticed with your clients, like pertain to masculinity and confidence and stuff?
Definitely. Well, you get to the point I think a lot of it has to do with the ego. Some of the guys that start the program, they're after, they're after fulfilling some fantasy that they have about themselves. Well, I want to be this guy that has lots of sex, and I want to do this because it makes me feel like more of a man. When just like anything else in life, once you have enough experience at something, and you combine that with discipline, you combine that with perspective and maturity, you get to the point to where, that no longer defines you. You don't have to be, this person. You don't have to go out and have sex with 100 women, and I get a lot of that because you have some guys that, what's very interesting is what we call the dark side of male enhancement. I call it that, and a lot of other men too, because this is essentially, and this is something that you'll see a lot in with certain men who have experienced pain in their lives. What they decide to do is, well, they're not going to get, they've been hurt. So what they're going to do is they're going to go out, they're going to have as much meaningless sex as possible with as many partners as possible in order to condition themselves. It's almost like, just like a brute force approach to conditioning. And, by emotionally dissociating yourself and, not allowing yourself to get close, you don't experience that potential fear, you're able to physically adapt to it. So, I mean, you get proficient, but you do so at a lower level. What often happens, though, is, these men, they'll do that for X amount of years. They mature a little bit and they decide, well, I'm tired of this. It's an empty experience. I want to get close to someone. And then what often happens, and I hear this a lot, is, once they decide to actually allow themselves to become emotionally vulnerable, all of those feelings that they suppress it comes back to them. So, that brute force approach, essentially, it takes the emotion out of sex. And that's why men are having a lot of problems, because they have been taught to separate emotions from sex. That's one of the most intimate experiences you can have, but they've taught themselves, well, I can't be vulnerable with this person because I'm afraid what they're going to think of me, or whatever, or I don't see myself as worthy, or whatever they have going through their mind, and it interferes with their performance. I mean, if you ever study phallic symbolism, it's interesting how it's used a lot, because the penis is it's very honest. There's no tricking. I mean, if deep down inside you feel horrible about yourself, or afraid or shamed, it's going to manifest itself. You could fake it in other aspects, but the penis is very honest. So, I mean, in order to transcend that, I mean, you have to really change fundamental aspects about yourself so that you are able to perform without those encumbrances. So, in order to do that, I mean, thankfully, a lot of the clients that I come across, they're not so deeply traumatized that they can't manage those issues themselves. When I do come across clients who are obviously very, very deeply in pain, I mean, I don't mind talking to them, but I'm not a doctor, so I can't, I can't recommend, that level of treatment. I often tell them, you need a level of help that to be found elsewhere. And not only that, but male enhancement training, it's not a substitute for mental hygiene. I mean, it's very helpful at developing aspects of yourself, but you have to approach it from the right place. You have to, if you're coming to it with the wrong place, you can actually, do a lot of damage. So it's very, very important that this type of training is approached with maturity and honesty.